So, welcome back to Nick's podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's the first time. Just I consider welcome. Alright. So, here with my guest. I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Steve Cook.
Alright, I'm Steve Cook. It's very nice to have you being on this podcast. So, I want this podcast to sort of focus on you. Like, what is your background? So, we are here at Temple University, and I'm curious, what exactly do you do here? Like, what's your major? Give us some background.
I am a second year here at Temple, studying computer science, which has gone pretty smoothly, I want to say, so far.
You want to say?
Yeah, I want to say. You know, it's computer science. It's not like... It's not an easy major, but it's also not something super hard, at least starting off.
So freshman year, you'd say it's kind of like...
freshman year was so boring.
Yeah, really?
It was boring.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not much stuff doing. Like, I actually am jealous of the people that I see taking bio and chem, and they're like, oh, I have so much stuff that I have to get done for my
you don't
major.
You're not jealous.
No, like, it would give me something to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm doing nothing, and like with my assignments with comp sci, it's like I have to write the answers for the questions on a blank piece of paper. It only takes like half of this piece of lined paper, and then I hand it in the next week. Like it's not much work starting off. There's no big assignments or anything like that.
That's very interesting. What about your other classes besides computer science?
Oh, those are just, I want to say, like, annoying.
How so? Like, you mean the gen ed courses?
Oh, yeah. And I feel like that everyone, unless you take a gen ed that you're interested in, that sounds interesting.
Yes.
They're all just being taken to get taken. I need the gen ed credit, so I'm going to take this class that falls under this category, something that some people think that they could just get by with.
Yeah.
And then you have...
Turns out being something they didn't think it would be.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you have your mosaics, intellectual heritage classes, which are required by the university. They're, IH is IH. It's boring,
And
but
that's intellectual
get through
heritage.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's the English classes that the university makes you take, like 802 and analytical reading and writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a whole bunch of writing about whatever subject that professor decides to pick for your class or whatever. So like mine this
Do you
time.
know if it's the same every year for the same professor?
I am not sure. I think it might be for the same professor, but I'm not 100% sure. Mine right now is public art, public spaces, and like museums and stuff like that.
You have to write about museums.
I will have to. I think my third paper, my final one, will be about museums, I guess. We aren't on that unit yet. That's our like last unit, so I'm not sure what we're supposed to be learning about them technically yet, but
Okay,
we'll
so what have
get
you
there.
done so far?
Our first paper was on public spaces, so we had to observe a public space for 30 minutes to an hour, like the kind of people that were there.
That would be very interesting in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, that's the point, like city-based public spaces. And then we also read a whole bunch of articles about safety, public safety, what makes a public space more safe, and like studies with public spaces. And then we had to take that with a little bit of our own research, put it in a paper about like we had to think of our own thesis for like a public space that we observed.
Okay. And what public space did you do?
I chose South Street because, you have a whole bunch of shops. It's decently busy towards the afternoons, especially on weekends. But, there's also... What I was thinking of doing is... I forget the park by the art museum. It's just there's always people just sitting in the grass and like having fun, just doing whatever. But it's not the same. I didn't want to do something like that because it didn't fit well with what we read about. We always read about stuff like on street, like on near sidewalk, like
Grad Street. That would be
Grad Street would be the perfect place.
Okay, very cool. So we know that you are in computer science, and we could say that's one of your interests, but do you have anything that branches specifically off computer science or just in any other direction?
Oddly enough, something that I guess you could say is completely opposite direction. Maybe not completely, but a lot of music. I like to do a lot of stuff with making music.
Yes, I have heard.
You know that. And it's not necessarily like writing chord progressions and doing like an audio development type thing, like making a beat for something. Like I've never actually done that, but it's more like writing and like way things sound.
Like lyricism and stuff like that.
Exactly. Lyricism, like vocals. If I could do like all of it together, if I actually learned how to do stuff like making the actual instrumentals and stuff, I'd, probably put my hand in there and do more with it. But right now it's just I have friends like that help out with that part. But yeah, I want to say music is like the other big thing that I do as a hobby, as an interest.
Do you feel that if you didn't have those friends there to do the beats and instrumentals for you, by dipping your hand in yourself, do you think it would take much longer to produce the things that you do?
I think so, at least starting off, because I'd have to learn like everything in that environment, in that part of the trade. Because there's just like a whole bunch of things that things with certain types of instruments, certain types of software,
and that can be expensive too.
Yeah, you also have the pricing, and then if I wanted to get like some sort of instructor or teacher like outside of like school wise, that also would cost money instead of like learning it on my own, which would probably speed things up, but again, it's still time consuming and costs money. So
true.
And as a college student, that's not always available to
That's absolutely right. Shout out to all those college students that are low on money, because we feel you. So what I wanted to ask you regarding the music, for the people who don't know, you're a white teenage dude, and oftentimes in this society and in sort of like the rap culture and even the music culture, people that are white don't really have the same sort of, like, they're not looked at in the same way as some African American artists. How do you feel about that?
I understand where they come from, because you go back and you look at like all the beginning stories. If you ever watch the movies, like you have Straight Outta Compton, stuff like that, where you have the start of hip hop and rap coming from these groups that didn't have much, because their situation was there was a very clear division because of like the segregation and the immense amount of like racism at the times. So you have like these groups of people that turn to music and turn to a new style of music to show how they feel about it.
And they use that as their outlet.
Yes. And so at the time it was just these like African American groups, these new coming artists that pretty much started hip hop.
Sure. Yeah. I'd say that.
And so a lot of people look at it and say, this is where we started from. We didn't have any of you, like, Caucasian people, like, white people in this mix. Like, why are you here now? This isn't your culture. This isn't your music. Which, it's kind of... It kind of hurts themselves saying that, because they don't want to grow as a culture by letting other people in. Because in the end, it shouldn't matter about, who started it, but who supports it now.
Yeah, but I can also see how it may be hard for Black people to accept white people into their culture, especially with all the oppression that they face.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then, but what I always thought was interesting was we also have the Eminem's startup story.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And, like, it's another perfect example of coming from nothing, and you see him come out of nothing, and it's like, Well, he's using music as an outlet, and he turns to this hip-hop rap, which is what he grew up with because that's what was starting when he was that age.
Mm-hmm.
And now you turn to people like Machine Gun Kelly, where I'm just bringing him up. He comes to mind because of the whole diss track thing that happened recently.
Yes.
And I don't know Machine Gun Kelly's backstory.
I don't either, but that's for a whole nother discussion.
That is, I'm not trying to bring that up. His name just came to mind.
Yeah.
Who is I forget where he's from too. But it's Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
MGK's from Cleveland. And he's
Cleveland.
okay, I see what you know, most likely he didn't have the greatest time coming up, but we don't know his backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Logic, who isn't necessarily white, but you know he has the look of being white, even though he is like a mix.
But did you know that he is half black?
Yes, I did. I knew
he
that.
tells
you know,
the public that a good amount.
Yeah, he does.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell there's like some elements.
But that's actually almost a good sort of indicator that it is such a big issue in our society about being white, because he brings it up so often that he does have those black roots. He has one parent that's black, one parent that's white. If he was white, I feel like he wouldn't be accepted as much. And
Probably.
I think he feels the same way as he brings it up. So
all
often.
the time, yeah. And I actually think that too, because like knowing that he does have like that kind of culture in him from his childhood and being raised and like what he went through, it's kind of like, oh, you've gone through like what we've gone through, so you fit in, you know. It's we're honestly at that point where whenever someone comes on and says you shouldn't be in the hip-hop rap game because of your skin color, they're segregating themselves. It's like, at first they wanted people to know what their problems were, and they wanted to be treated as if they belonged.
I wouldn't say they were segregating themselves.
I see it that way. I see it as they're saying, now only we're allowed to do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting viewpoint, but I'm going to have to take the devil's advocate and say that it's almost rightfully so. Like, from a black person's perspective, white people have not gone through nearly the amount of struggle that, and I'm not saying that every black person has gone through struggle since they were young, but there's definitely been factors in place that make it harder for a black person just in life, because racism and slavery is not technically allowed anymore, it still happens on a day-to-day basis.
You're not wrong. You know, you can see things in the news still today that, you know, visibly display that there is a problem. Like, I have always thought of things like music, stuff like any sort of work, I guess you could say, like, whether it is like an office job, whether it is being in a community where you make music together with a group of people that you don't necessarily know, or you play video games, like...
By saying, like, a group of people that you don't normally know, that's, like, through the internet and stuff?
Yeah. Internet is probably, like, a best example, because otherwise you probably develop, like, a connection with someone if you meet them face-to-face.
Yeah.
But it's, like, if you take that internet example, you don't know these people. You don't know, you know, unless they tell you otherwise, oh, yeah, I'm this race, I'm this heritage, like... But if you don't know that information, you can continue to work and do things together, like have fun with them, do whatever you want with them, because you don't care, because you're working together. You know what I mean? It's that just using that as an example of not being able to see the difference between the people.
Just you see the talent.
You just see the talent. You see that you like to do the same things together. You can continue to grow and become, like, better with that person, I guess you could, with these people. Like, you come together about one thing, music, and you come together to make music, and you spread that music.
For people to enjoy.
For people to enjoy. as a point of proof is like, what I'm trying to say is, you can do it together no matter your whatever physical differences, whatever minor differences you have, because in the end you should be doing it because you love it. You should be doing it because you want other people to enjoy it. You shouldn't be telling someone else they can't do it because they have something different than you. They have a different past. They have a different future. They have a different family. They have a different timeline. Sure. It shouldn't matter, because as long as you like to do it and they like to do it, and as long as everybody likes to do it and wants other people to hear about it, you should continue to do it, and you should continue to offer help and support to those who would like to do the same.
I absolutely agree. And I feel like definitely in this culture we're making progressions towards that. Like, we're seeing more and more artists who don't necessarily come from a bad background or a rough childhood. And I think that's a good thing. Like, in the future we'll see more variety of artists. And not to say that we don't want to have less African American artists, it's just that we want to see all sorts of talent come to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So we spoke earlier about Logic and how his kind of background almost defines who he is. Can we hear a little bit about your background? Like, where did you come from? Where did you grow up? Tell us about that.
So I'm from, I guess you could call it a suburban town, or is it a suburb of Philly, pretty much. It's like 30, 45 minutes north, called Harleysville. Small town. So, yeah, shout out to the Ville. Small town, bordering a whole bunch of other small towns. Mm-hmm. But, it's very, like, I want to say more country-like around where I was.
A lot of farmland. Yeah.
There's a lot of farmland. Like, I grew up with no neighbors. My house is literally, like, right on a street that branches off of a main road, mm-hmm. a major road. Yeah. And so I don't really have neighbors. So we just have a whole bunch of fields surrounding my house. So that sucks, but...
So you're basically saying you had no friends, right?
Well, I had friends while I was at school, but... Otherwise, when I was younger, there was no way to get to them because I couldn't drive.
True. Can you ride a bike to
no. As Nick knows here, I never learned how to ride a bike, so that's a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
But actually, a lot of people were too far away to ride a bike because most of my...
You don't want to be riding a bike down that road. Like, you'll get hit by a car.
Yeah, I would definitely get hit.
Yeah.
But... So I spent most of my time indoors when I was at home, except I would go outside. When I used to have a dog when I was really little.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, like...
What was your dog's name?
It was... We just...
Wow, you don't know your own dog's name.
It was a long time ago.
Dude.
I had... You had to understand, I've had 20 cats and 2 dogs. Because
For some reason that doesn't surprise me.
Well, after we had lost our dog, we got 2 cats. One of them was an outdoor only cat. Mm-hmm. His name was Tiger. This one I remember because he made an impression on me.
Oh, wow.
Because he'd come to our house like scraped up and attacked, and we'd give him medicine, we'd heal him, we'd give him food, then he'd just leave.
God.
So it was like that, just like in my head. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
You try to touch him too, he'll be like, screw off, like. And then Annabelle, she was an indoor-outdoor, but when she would go out, she'd come back pregnant. And we never got her fixed because we didn't feel like it. And it was fine. We set up a little box for her. She'd lay down. So
that's where you got all the cats from.
Yeah, those were... But we never kept them except for over, like, I want to say 2 months.
Yeah.
But I always named them.
Did you sell them to people?
Yeah. Okay. We would, well, not sell. We would give them away.
Okay.
But we had a beagle. That was our first dog. And then I had her...
That you don't know the name of.
Maggie. It was Maggie.
How young were you when this happened, man?
Like, she passed away when I was going into kindergarten, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So, it's also very far... I can't believe... No, but Maggie, I should know the name.
Maggie the Beagle.
Yeah. So... And then I didn't have... Then we had the cats for a while. And then when I got to high school, no animals until sophomore, junior year when I got Sadie, my current border collie dog.
Yes. Very cute dog.
Yeah, she's at home right now, probably asleep because she's lazy as crap. But other than that, my sisters were always out of the house because by the time I was in middle school, they would have their licenses.
So
what is
the age gap?
I want to say Haley graduated 3 years. Oh, so like a five,
Between
6.
you and the youngest.
Okay, so wait, Haley's 93. So it's about a 6-year gap between me and my...
Well, if she's 93, I think that's a lot older.
1993, idiot. I'm born 99. So, and then Abby's 91.
Okay.
So, they're only a 2-year gap.
Yeah.
And Haley and I are a 6-year gap.
Does that make you think...
A couple times. I've always...
We're not necessarily putting out there, but Stevie might be an accident. You never know.
But because of that age gap, they were by the time I was in like middle school, they were able to go out of the house, whether my oldest sister was able to drive herself or drive my sister, blah blah. So and both my parents work.
Okay.
They still do. So I'd come home, I'd leave for school, I'd see them in the morning, leave for school, have breakfast, get on the bus, blah blah, and then I'd come home. No one's home. Oh, okay. So I do my own thing, whether it's like listening to music or it's just jotting things down, doing homework, maybe like writing things for music, because that's when I started actually, like just random like 5 or 6 lines just to get like a thought out, maybe get like a melody.
And what year was this?
This started, I want to say 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just this, and then all the way up until finally junior year when I got my license, that's when I was able to actually go and do things freely, to like be able to leave my house without needing a ride from somebody else.
Yeah.
But so I want to say most of my grade school years just spent time at home by myself with whatever animal was there, and
with you and your thoughts.
Yeah, it was very boring, very isolated, and I'm not trying to get all like sad and deep, but like, that's just how I spent. So a lot of times, what I think is because I didn't have much then, makes me want things. Like I get attached with things.
Sure. So
an addictive personality, if you will. So a lot of times.
For anyone who doesn't know, Stevie's quite the jewel head.
Okay, well, we're not just in that aspect, though.
Okay.
Like,
do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so, like, say a relationship, for example.
Okay.
You could find me getting attached to somebody that I would spend a lot of time with very easily. And, because I get attached so easily when things don't work out because they never got actually that serious, it would all dump out in the end. I'd feel hurt,
Understandably so.
Yeah. So because I have like an addictive personality, I'd get attached, I'd get addicted to things. And so I also use those feelings that I get from that and put them into my music. So my latest release, actually my latest one we don't talk about, my second latest release, I Hope, that song was based on, like, I guess you could say, like, a summer fling. And, it comes down to, have you ever heard the story of when two people, like, have, like, a, we're just going to do our own thing. Like, it's just going to be, like, a small thing. We're not going to get serious at all.
One person always.
One person gets attached, and me and my addictive personality, I got attached. So, at the end of the summer, I wrote that and didn't really have anything to record it to until as of recently. And when I did, it just felt so good. And, like, using music as an outlet like that, it just makes you... It just resets your like, emotion button.
Sure.
And then after releasing that, like, just performing it and recording it, I feel sad. But as soon as I know it's done, as soon as I know it's out there, and it sounds how I feel.
You can move on a bit.
You move on, yeah, you can move on, and you just feel happy that you got it off your chest, and you can now think about and embrace everything else around you.
Yeah.
And I get this feeling that I like doing this kind of music because it just, there's a message to it, there's a reason for it. When you listen to, like, trap music. You go out and listen to like Lil Uzi or like Rich the Kid.
Yeah.
It's just like stuff to just like get lit to. You know, you just like.
Sure, like drugs, partying.
Exactly.
Women.
There's no real message to it or meaning to it, like reason why.
Yeah.
But then if you go listen to something like NF, who has had a childhood of being like abused and like alone and had really not much anything, what he writes about is his story. Yeah. And I want to say it relieves a lot off him. I don't know. He doesn't talk much.
That'd be a good assumption.
I'd say. But like his second album, Therapy Session, in the actual song Therapy Session on it, he says that him making music, he has a little skit right at the end, he says that him making music is a therapy for him.
Well, then it's not even an assumption anymore, we know
but you don't know how much it actually takes off him because he still is that depressed mental state from how he acts at least.
Sure.
So you don't know how much, if it even makes him happy at all, just to put it out there.
True.
So.
I mean, if it's providing any sort of therapy, that could be a positive thing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, that's good. All right, now we're gonna switch gears a little more from the music and background, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about Temple, which is where we're recording this here.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you, what is your, let's say top 3 things that you like about this school and the area, the people? It could be anything.
So number one thing is that it is in the city.
City, yeah.
So the city life, it's completely different than living at Harleysville. Like,
totally different than countryside.
Yeah, way different. I love how everything is easily accessible, whether it's walking to it or just taking the subway. You know, it's not hard to get somewhere. Very easy transportation, especially with the whole block format. All the streets are raised out. Then the second thing I would say about Temple specifically, is what they offer here for like extra things to do. And I don't mean like sports and like clubs and like all that stuff.
Those are still positive.
Well, those are positive, but I mean, there are things where, because every school has like clubs and like, you know, intramural sports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you come to a school like this and you look at it as a decent sized school, it's not huge, but it's not small.
I would definitely say it's a decent sized school. So for those people that don't know, I originally came from Arcadia University, and that has about 2,500 undergrad. And compared to Temple with about 30,000, that's quite the switch up. So I'm in a totally different environment, and I love it. So go ahead.
So with the amount of students that you see here, the professors, most of the professors, not all, will still reach out on that like helping hand and like also provide you with opportunities where they'll see that you're interested in something related to the class.
They'll refer you to somebody from there.
They'll tell you, oh yeah, you could talk to this person. Oh, this person's coming in for a meeting with me, and I could give you their information, and you could like talk to them while they're around.
Yeah.
So do you get extra opportunities from the connections you make just from having a class with a professor?
Yeah.
You know, and for them to reach out like that is definitely something special that I've never like heard of really from a whole bunch of people, from other schools at least.
Yeah, if I could give advice to anybody who is going to college or is already in college, it would be talk to your professors more, because they're really cool people if you get to know them. Like, they've been through so much more than you, and specifically if it's a class for your major, they have gone through the same things that you may want to do in the future. They could give you job references, they could give you connections. There's just so much that you can learn from them and that they could even help you out with. That's amazing.
And then the third thing, and this one I would say, I like want to say how they like attempt to connect like the students on campus. Like they do have events all the time for things like right in the center of campus by the bell tower. They'll like have some sort of thing going on more towards the weekend usually, because you know classes and homework.
People are busy. Yeah.
But they like try to get students to come out and be together, and then even like people just dorm specific. I remember last year living in Whitehall. they would always do things where, even though our RA only had our wing to cover, you know, they would try to get everybody on the floor together. Mm-hmm. And then later, once the floor was relative to each other, they would get everybody to come together and do something on, like, the bottom floor, the middle floor.
Everybody from Whitehall.
Correct.
So in the same building.
Mm-hmm. So I want to say, like, how they try to connect not just you with the world, but with you as a student with the other students who you're going to have to, I don't know, I guess graduate with and possibly work with after you're here.
Yeah, I mean, and plus it's a good opportunity to make friends, because that's another huge part of college is connecting with people. Yeah, that's a great thing. Let's talk about, how did you come to Temple? Like, what were, like, obviously you know so much about Temple now, but in high school, is your view different than it is now?
When I had first started my college search, I had just thought of, you know, schools that everybody talked about. Mm-hmm. And Temple wasn't necessarily on that list. The original ones were Penn State, obviously.
The classic Pennsylvania school.
Yeah, and I didn't really want to go. After viewing the campus, I was like, I can't do this. It's too open. Like, too open. Yeah, I didn't like it.
I mean, there is like 100,000 kids that go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's Pitt. Mm-hmm. Then I was looking at University of... no, it was Colorado School of Mines. And the reason was because of the computer science and their engineering. Mm-hmm. Very good, like, I think it's technically a technical institute type thing, like where they focus on technology skills and stuff like that. But a very good school it's a private, like, institute, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was one more. Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of getting into it, but for my grandfather, my pop-up, when he passed away, he had asked me, and he laughed when he said it too. It was just funny. He was like, "I want you to be applying to Yale," and you know, I applied. I checked out the campus, and it was actually really funny because Yale is turned into an art school pretty much. Everything there's so many buildings that are now dedicated to art majors now, and like...
That's true for Harvard also. There's a lot of liberal arts degrees.
I mean, Harvard also has its own Harvard Law.
Well,
like,
of course.
Known. I feel like Harvard is more known for their law school than anything.
Yeah, sure.
But we toured the computer science department. We toured the department, and there's actually students who put up posters declaring that they demand more resources for computer science students.
Really?
Meaning...
That's quite the thing to see on a tour.
Yeah, and they were saying, written on them, they were saying how the professors aren't helping them enough, like, getting work done, and also they're not being taught enough. They were thinking that a lot of the stuff they could learn on their own because it's all basic things, and when they look up a YouTube video, it's the exact same thing that the professors are teaching.
Wow.
So it's nothing special in their eyes. And these are like junior, these were upperclassmen who were currently working on their like final project, I guess you could say.
Their senior thesis, perhaps.
Well, in computer science, it's not a thesis. It's like you have to build a system for a company, like, and then, you know, as a team and deploy it for this company. So I guess I'm not sure if they have to write a thesis. They probably do, but
yeah.
But like the whole idea is just like this whole, you know, project. That's the biggest part.
Okay, that's really interesting. I didn't expect that.
I was shocked myself. My dad and I were like confused when we got there. We were like, "Wow, this is not what we expected at all."
Yeah. Wow. Really. So, how far up on the list do you think that the computer science played into it? Like, obviously people look for schools for a lot of reasons, but how important was that?
Computer science, I want to say, was the biggest reasoning, like, major-wise, because other than music, when we talked about our background, what I didn't mention is I've been programming myself since, like, 7th grade.
Yeah.
You know, a funny story, Minecraft comes out, and I see everyone making mods, and I'm thinking, I want to make them myself. So that's how I started programming. I was making mods for Minecraft. I started my first mod was I called it Candy Craft. It was making candy in the game, and like there were like NPCs that sold candy and like stuff like that. It was dumb. But it was fun. It was a learning process. Yeah. So that's when I started, and I continued because I'm just sitting there. Like I said, no one else is there, so I'm just sitting there on my computer, whether it's doing music stuff or programming, and I did the programming a little bit more as a hobby because it's easier to do because there's no like extra artistic thought to it.
Numbers and letters.
Exactly, it's just simple like logical, like math and stuff.
Yeah.
So with doing that keep going with that, I've learned a lot already. So I was thinking I could go to college for it, use what I already know, learn more, and make a career out of it.
Mm-hmm. And you already have been doing some work for companies, right?
I worked for a small programming company back at home called Springford. It's like a 20-minute drive from my house, 25. Mm-hmm. But it's a small company. It's like every time I would walk in, you see the same like 10 other people. Yeah. So you get friendly with the same faces. There's no big business involved. Okay. But it was fun, and I had a learning process myself of even with a company that doesn't do a lot all throughout the world, sure, they still can make a decent-sized money selling what they make.
And what sort of things do they do for other companies, and how did you contribute to that?
The main project that it all started was an HR-based it's human resources thing where the way we do things now, or the way that a lot of the world does things now, is your HR leader, your human resources manager, will assess or appraise your performance throughout a year. Yep. So our whole thing was to help with that and do that, other than a lot of like the psychoanalysis stuff, because that's obvious. You have to actually see them and talk to them, interview them in person. But a lot of like surveying and stuff like that could be done online, and then averaged out into scores, and then from there assume a pay raise, if any. So, it all came out very well. They're still adding stuff. We were just adding stuff right before I left for school.
And that was this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we're slowly trying to get it out there for companies to use and buy.
That's really interesting. And do you see yourself maybe working for the same company after you graduate, or?
I've always debated that because I don't necessarily it would be a great opportunity to go work with Amazon or IBM or Google, Microsoft, something like that. But at the same time, I feel like I'd love to have my own ideas and start my own small business. Mm-hmm. I don't plan on owning a huge business that takes over a giant section of the world and its technology. But being able to have a small environment, a small group of people. Too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just being able to do that and grow on my own and control things on my own and but just work with people that I can know and get to know without a whole bunch of hassle. Mm-hmm. That's an ideal workspace. It's easier to work under those conditions too.
Yeah. Very interesting. Now, given your computer science major, what would a schedule look like on a day-to-day basis?
My class schedule-wise?
Yes.
So, as of right now, I've only been taking one computer science major credit class per semester. And most of those come, except for the second semester last year, that one was a 9 a.m.
Oh.
That sucked, but I went. I had to go.
No fun.
But so most of the comp sci classes are lab-based, because most of them are actual coding, some aren't. But so you'd have your lab scheduled midday, and then the actual lecture is more towards the nighttime.
Mm-hmm. And that would be same day?
Same day, yeah. Okay. So right now my Tuesday, Thursdays is I have the lecture at 5:30 to 7. Mm-hmm. And then my lab is on Tuesdays only I want to say from 1 to 4. It's like a 3 or 4 hour space. It might be 1 to 5.
Yeah.
So it's like a giant amount of time, but it's not like a required lab. You go just to have time to work on whatever assignments that you could also do back in your room. You know,
you can ask questions to the professors and.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a useful time, but it's not like a chem lab where you go and you have to be there to perform the lab and
get graded on your performance.
I want to say there's a lot of leeway
Mm-hmm.
with attendance and stuff when it comes to the comp sci major, which could definitely be why some don't do well, because they're not as strict with making sure people are learning what they need to learn.
Yeah.
But I find it useful for me because I don't want to have to go if I already know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to sound
cocky. You could just do all the
but
work from your bedroom.
yeah, I can, and I have. That's what I literally been laying on the couch down in the living room and just like laying there typing away. And like I did the first assignment. I finished that before we even had our first lecture.
Yeah.
And then I finished the second assignment 1 week later, which is due this coming Thursday, I think.
This coming Thursday.
So
we've
tomorrow?
already been in class. We've already been in class for 5 weeks now.
This is our 4th week.
Oh, this is our 4th week.
This is our 4th week.
Yeah, we're getting there. Wow. Man. Yeah, well, that's good to hear that you're enjoying it. So that could be for anyone thinking about computer science at Temple University, and I'm not sure about other colleges, but attendance is not that mandatory, so you can sleep in.
But if you don't know what you're doing, you should go.
Yes.
Otherwise, you will fall behind.
That is an important thing to note. Exactly. So do your peers, do they kind of have a similar work ethic? Like, do they not come up to class? And I mean, I guess if you don't go to class, you don't really know them that well.
Well, okay, I do go to the lecture a decent amount just to make sure I know what page we're on. But I want to say that there are some that do know. There are a handful that come in and they are just like me. They know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are some that are taking the major because they're interested. You know, they don't have a background in it, but they're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. This is what I want to get into. This is the career that I hear is expanding. And they do have slightly a rough time because some of the concepts, they don't think that way. You know, I always think of computer science as a digital version of physics.
Okay.
You know, there are equations, there are sequences that you could physically represent through physics and like other things that we learn if you would take that major, but it's, you know, on a computer, it's on a digital world.
Mm-hmm.
That's why my backup was if I didn't want to do computer science, I'd go with physics.
Okay.
That was my second choice of major if I had to do it.
Cool. Very interesting. So we're going to totally switch gears right now. And we're going to start talking about some crazy stories that you have from Temple. Because as some people may have the preconceived notion, is that Temple is quite the party school. And I would say it's a pretty decently good party school, especially for me coming from
Arcadia.
A small private school. Like, it's a total change in gears. So, do you have any crazy stories? I know you're only a sophomore, and as am I, but have you had any experience with some crazy stuff?
There are, once in a while, you get some interesting things. Now, they say Temple's a dry campus, and sure, the buildings aren't supposed to have any alcohol in them.
Dry with air quotes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, there's always those weekends people go out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think there aren't necessarily crazy things, but there are some cool things and some interesting things.
Okay.
One is it's more about the people you meet.
Yeah.
And I want to assume that they're all like homeless in some sort of way because they're so interesting, but you see the way they're dressed and they don't look like they're coming from like a clean location.
You're talking about the locals here.
Not all locals, obviously, but like, yeah, they're definitely from Philly because they're always here.
Yeah.
He has so many names, but we learned him as Backflip Kenny.
Okay, yeah, I've heard Mr. Flips.
Yeah, that's him too. Yeah. He will do a backflip for money, but he'll backflip first. You always see the backflip, and then he asks, "Hey guys, could you give me some money?" Like, he's generous about it. He loves doing backflips, I guess. Otherwise, he would ask for the money first.
And it's not just backflips you can do. this man is like...
He's like a gymnast.
He's a full gymnast. So
Yeah,
he'll
he can do
start
anything.
doing back handsprings in the center of the road. There's like... Meanwhile, there's broken glass in like the center of these streets. It's not very clean, but he goes through it all.
But he's doing it for an impression. He's doing it for...
We don't know what he's doing it for. Like, we don't know what the money is for.
We know how much crack he's on.
Okay. We're hoping that it's to support himself and possibly his family if he has one, and
Yeah.
for food, obviously.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell he's a nicer guy because he's not straight up asking for the money before he does the backflip. You know, he does it to entertain.
Yeah.
And then if someone's nice...
And he loves seeing the people's reactions.
Oh, he loves it.
Yeah.
I saw a video, I didn't see this in person, you might have seen it, where he backflipped off of, like,
The handrail.
there was one where he was up one more level of a house. It was the second floor of a house, balcony.
Geez.
He lands it.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm wondering, if I saw that and he said, hey, guys,
Yeah.
I would have handed him $5. Are you kidding me? That's like...
I'll have to find the video to that and hopefully find a link to that.
I'm pretty sure it was on Instagram, but I'll have to look
Yeah.
for it.
Okay, wow.
But
that's
I was
crazy.
surprised. You know,
Yeah.
it's insane. And then I forget what his rap name was.
Oh, he raps too. He doesn't-
Not this guy. This is a different guy.
Oh, a different guy.
This guy, he comes up. He's just walking down the street, and we're standing by the handrail.
This is like during the day? Or?
Night again. All this stuff happens at night when
Oh,
everyone's pissed drunk and everyone's having fun. They're doing their own thing.
Mainly weekends, I say.
Yes, always
Okay.
on a weekend.
Mhm.
He comes up and he says he's the illest rapper in North Philadelphia.
Okay. All right.
And it was just the way he's talking, like the video of him. He's always talking. He's just
He's talking himself up. Like,
yeah, he's talking himself up like
Yeah.
no one's better than me in North
Yeah.
Philly. Like, but he only says North Philly. He's not talking about South. He's not East, West,
Yeah.
North only.
North Philly, all right.
But that's another interesting one.
Have you heard him rap before?
No.
No. Okay. Well, I was gonna. My next question was is he the
Was he
best
good?
rapper in North Philly? That's what the determining factor is. Okay.
There was also a time. This was during the day. I think this was a Thursday or Wednesday. It was closer towards the end of the week. This guy, we were leaving Whitehall. I think we were going to get food. And this guy is.
Who was with you? Would
I think it was all the guys.
roommates from.
Yeah,
So
it was-
who would that include? That'd be like Jay, Colin.
Jake, Colin, Chris, who obviously listeners don't know who they are, but
So we got Jake, Colin, Chris. Was other Colin there?
I don't know. Yeah, there's two Collins in
Yeah,
the
we
mix,
have-
so it's hard to
Yeah,
call him
these
one
are-
L and call him with two L's.
Yeah. So our roommates, it's Stevie, myself, Colin, and then Chris and Jake. Then we'll have a extra person second semester who's coming back from Australia. And we have two Collins. One Colin has two L's. He's taller. And one Colin has one L, and he's a little bit shorter. And
yeah.
the Colin with one L, he's the only person in our apartment, you could call it, who is in a frat. So he doesn't spend too much time around us, but he pops in here and there.
I forget. I don't know who. It was just like roommates that were with us. I don't know which ones exactly.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Gatos was there. Colin Gatos, two L's.
Two L's. Okay.
So we're just walking down the street. All of a sudden, we see this guy on a bike ride by.
Well, yeah. If it was you, you'd be
Well,
walking.
here's the thing. He wasn't sitting. This
Yeah.
man has his one foot on his handlebars and one foot on the seat.
I actually saw this like 2 days ago when I was going
So you saw it too?
with my groceries, yeah. And the tires on his bike are much wider than the average bike, so that provides a little more balance.
Was it a kid that you saw?
He wasn't that old. He was
Okay,
not
yeah,
that
okay,
old.
good. Okay, so we probably saw the same person
Yeah.
then. But all I remember seeing is he's riding pretty decent speed straight down Broad.
Oh yeah,
And-
right in the center of the street. Yeah.
And then he gets to the corner of it was Diamond and Broad
Mm-hmm.
and makes a right. But
He
it
made the turn without
without stopping.
Yeah, without using his hands.
And it was such a sharp turn look too. We just looked at each other like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Impressive, yeah.
Like, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I couldn't even picture this being possible. He, like, one foot was on the seat, and then the other foot was on the handlebars. Steering and turning. And, that's... People of Philly, man.
How do you get up on a bike and start it moving while you're
first
standing?
You gotta start pedaling.
I feel, okay, well, like, how
you don't really understand the concept of bikes.
Okay. Yeah, I never learned how to ride one. Well, no, I understand that. You start the movement, but then keep your balance as you hop up to stand on it.
Yeah, either way, this guy's impressive. That's quite the feat in and of itself. So, going back to classes and your major. If we're talking next year, and obviously the year after is senior year, so that's quite an important year, but do you see yourself following the same pathway that you have been going on this whole time?
Wait, what do you mean? Like,
will you stay with computer science, or do you think you could switch to something else? Or
I want to stay with computer science because there's nothing that's necessarily boring with it. It's still interesting in the assignments. Like, doing the work, I have some fun with it. I don't look at it as tedious, like, oh, I have to do this assignment for next week, blah.
Yeah.
You know, like, I actually get an entertainment with, like, being able to think in that mindset of programming.
Yeah, it's like problem solving, right?
Yeah. That I enjoy it. So I don't see myself switching. But if I did switch, it would be physics. But with physics, it's that same mindset and that same problem solving of, oh, how does this do this physically, you know?
Physically, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I was just curious because, I was going to say some people, but a lot of people usually don't know what they want to do going into college, and I certainly didn't either. And I know a lot of freshmen are coming in as undeclared, or some people might be in hard majors or just majors that they don't end up liking that much, and they think it's not okay to switch, but in reality that stuff happens all the time, and you shouldn't be worried about, like, your indecisiveness. You know?
And I think it would be better to switch. If you know you don't want to do what you're doing, switch, because you don't want to be stuck with something you don't want to use or don't want to work with until you go back to school again. Like, you would rather do something you're enjoying, you know? So, switching would be a better bet, even if you think it sets you back a little bit, than finishing, spending a little bit, or not a little bit, a lot more money just to finish something you don't want.
Yeah.
And then going through the whole process again just to do a whole another 4 years at least of whatever you actually want to do. It's better to just make the switch in the middle.
Yeah, and you got to be doing it for the right reasons too, because there's definitely a lot of pressure for people our age, because if you're fortunate enough to have parents that can help fund your college journey, then you feel pretty indebted to them, and with whatever they're saying that they want you to go in. Like, I know this is very popular with the Asian culture and Indian culture, that your parents basically dictate what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Like, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not a doctor, then you've in a way disrespected your family by not being a certain level, certain tier. And when you're passionate about something, it's hard to let that go because you're being forced to go into something. So I know it might be a difficult conversation to have with your parents, but by expressing what you really want to do, hopefully they can be understanding of what your wishes are, even though they are helping you out with college.
Yeah, I've seen, there's actually a friend of mine from my work, where I used to work, not from like my programming place. I used to work at an iPhone repair place. His parents separated, but we're still on the same page of like his education.
Yeah.
And he had the problem of his parents wanted him to go into business. He's not necessarily a fan of that. He's been switching all over the place. He hasn't finished a single degree yet, but he's been just at community college.
Okay.
He's not selected an actual, like, full-on university, a 4-year university yet. But at first he wanted to do some sort of music interest. Then, as of recently, and he's actually more into it, he's doing cybersecurity,
really?
Which is a form of computer science.
Actually sounds pretty interesting.
But he's doing his, he didn't go into college right away because his parents didn't like his idea. Mm-hmm. So what he did was he got his job with the iPhone repair place, saved up. His mom still said, you can live with me, I'll help you out with, like, some stuff, but I'm not going to pay for an education I don't think, she didn't believe that he would do well in. Okay. So he saved his own money by working with her help of just getting, like, food stuff and, like, a place to live, and now he's using all his money that he saved on at least the first 2 years of his education. There you go. And then with an associate's, he talked with some guy actually came in from a small cybersecurity startup company to get his phone fixed, and they were talking, and he was like, yeah, when you get, like, an associate's at minimum, contact our company, say you know me, you can come in to talk to me directly, and then I'll get you some sort of position there where he'll be making some money, save up, and then finish a full bachelor's for his degree.
That's crazy how the world works.
Yeah, and it's connections. It's those connections like you had mentioned earlier, like the point that we're at in our lives, and he's in a similar one where it's all about the people you can connect to and how one another can use those connections to help each other out. To, like, say somebody in a certain industry. You don't plan on working in that industry, but
if there's somebody with that interest,
you have a friend that is a perfect match for what they're looking for. Yeah. You can connect them. You are that connection to that other person. And then in some way, somehow, that other person could pay you back with their own connection to something. But, it's just one giant web of people working with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's one takeaway from that is put yourself out there more. Because if he hadn't have talked to that guy in the phone place, he wouldn't have had that connection.
He would never have had the idea of, I can get started and then save my money to get even better education, Mm-hmm. But there's also another lesson there where it's nothing comes right away. He has to work. He has to do those 2 years of work. He has to then have his job and save money for a little bit of time, and then go to school again to be where he finally feels 100% comfortable. Mm-hmm. Nothing's instant.
Okay. And I think it's also good to be uncomfortable with your whole situation. Like, without going out of your comfort zone, how are you going to grow it all?
Yeah, I was also thinking that, like, slightly, because when you're in an uncomfortable position, it makes you want to work to get it makes you want to work where you are comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then, once you are comfortable, I can't really say, because, like,
you try something else that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, when you think you're finally comfortable, puts you in a new position where you want to work towards, again, something else. So, mm-hmm. As long as you have a goal, something set to work on, then you have something that's pushing you to do it. You want to be in that position. You don't want to sit here and feel like you're not doing anything with your life.
True. And by facing your fears more often, you prepare yourself for being in those uncomfortable circumstances. Like, say you lose your job or something like that, you're going to be mentally prepared to deal with the difficulties that come from that.
Yeah. Like, I want to say, if I had, knowing how I got my job now, the one that I am doing the programming with the small company, if I for some reason lost it in any way, whether it's all of a sudden I decide to not show up for work anymore, and they're like, you're fired.
Well, there you go.
But, like, in that situation, knowing how I got it through, again, loop back all the way to the connections. My mom knew the owner from the bank she worked at, and then she talked to him and said, I need an internship at first, and then turned into a job. Yeah. Knowing that, what opportunities to look for. But I'd be in the position where I need to actually start looking. I need to put effort in to feel like I'm back where I am, and then just keep working until you make more money, and then you feel a little bit more comfortable where you are in economics, like, the situation standpoint. and it's all about just improving yourself and your living space slowly through goals. Like,
yeah, and it depends what your goals are in the first place, because like not everyone's going to be wired the same way. Usually most people say they want to be happy, but there's other things that play into what they want to do.
There are different things make different people happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be like my sister, Haley, who...
Is this the oldest
This
one?
is the middle sister.
Middle sister, okay.
She's happy just exploring and doing things. Like seeing something new and exploring things. So she's a traveler.
I was going to say, that was my next question. Does she travel?
She's been to China, South Africa, Brazil, currently in Hawaii.
Wow.
Was in AmeriCorps, so she was all over.
You said AmeriCorps?
AmeriCorps, yeah.
Is that the same thing as like the Peace Corps or something?
It's so AmeriCorps it's this thing where they go around to different states and different like more damaged areas around the country, and they build homes and you know they rebuild a lot of the areas for people that can't do it themselves.
Yeah. Where does she spend most of her time, do you know?
I think most of the time she spent like learning, and then also while waiting for their assignments, they were in California.
Oh, wow.
I forget I think it's Southern California, somewhere in Southern California.
I wouldn't mind working there.
She loved it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but everything's so different, and she liked it because she wasn't at certain places for a very long time.
Yeah, I like that too. That's why I've transferred schools so many times. So from what the podcast knows so far is that I transferred from Arcadia, but second semester of my freshman year, I studied abroad in Scotland. So this is my third college I've been to as a first semester sophomore. So I've definitely been a lot of places so far. I don't like staying in one place for too long.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that are like that, that get that joy. Then there's some people that are happy when they know they are secure with their position, like whether it's socially or whether it's economically. You know, you have all those business people that make sure they have their stocks are set. They're not losing their money from their stocks, and they're making sure that they are making an actual earning from whatever product they're selling. Like there's certain people that just have different meanings for happiness.
Yeah, and they're different. Definitely, definitely different values determine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, given your values about music and computer science, do you see possibly an integration between the both of them? Could that happen?
It actually could, because, like, and I didn't even think about it that much, but if you think about it, all the streaming services you use for music, Apple Music, Spotify,
it's coding.
All those, they're all made by programmers, and they have things in them, like such as your Discover Weekly on Spotify, and
use algorithms and stuff for that.
Correct. And it's all there's one it used to be called there used to be a system that Spotify kind of like worked with for a little bit until they bought them and then shut down all the old servers.
Yeah. Because
people say they're trying to remake it all for themselves, which would be nice, but so far they haven't had any news, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But one was called, I think it was Never Ending DJ or something like that, or Unlimited DJ, something like that.
Okay.
And what it would do is you upload a song, and all it does is it goes through it and it connects pieces of the song to other parts, so that when it plays, it'll play infinitely. It'll jump to these other parts to make it sound like it's fluent, but it also doesn't sound like the same exact song every time.
Huh.
So it would infinitely play, but it would have like it would have a random different order so that it just sounded new when you got to the 10th time. And it was, I used it. I would put one song on, I wouldn't get sick of listening to it because it just sounded different, just because it would go from this one portion, it would cut from this one line to the next, but it would sound so fluent because it could detect where to cut off.
Wow. That really is integrating like math and music.
Yeah, and it's because in the end, everything with music it's a frequency. There's your physics to it. You know, you have your frequencies, you have your decibels, like your volume, your loudness. All those numbers come down to perception of like how we hear it, and then using the programming of it, it just all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
See, next thing you know, I'm going to be working with Spotify.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That'd be nice. So what can we expect in the music realm from your area?
I just got 2 more beats from my friend Buddy, who is a producer,
Mm-hmm.
and dabbles in his own music once in a while. But I'm hoping to get to finish 2 new songs with those. I have one currently. It actually is released on SoundCloud, but not on Spotify and Apple Music, because I wanted to get like a ear to see what people thought of it. No one really said anything, but people still liked it apparently. And then I had, which is Words Repeating, and then Not Broken is on Spotify and Apple Music and such. That I want to redo the 2 that I previously made.
Okay.
To make them sound like better quality, just overall better voice in them. And then Buddy wants to mix it and master it a little bit better on his own end because he wasn't comfortable with it himself. So in the end, what that'll be is a 4-song EP, and it's just to put something. I shouldn't say just to put something out there, but it's to show that,
get the name out there.
Yeah, show that I'm ready to make more music, whether it's just as a hobby or if it ends up being liked as a career. Sure. And it's hard starting up like this, especially because my resources are restricted. Finding beats online, I can't use those and spread it as much because a lot of places where I could get music out there are considered to be paid, and these tracks are licensed, and under some licenses I can't use it anywhere except on like physical copy or like SoundCloud. But with Buddy, he gives me the rights to the song, and we have a deal. Him and I are partners, so it goes 50-50 right now, and I don't plan to make money.
Yeah.
I'd rather use it as an expression, but
if it could double with that, like, who'd say that's a bad thing?
Yeah. But I don't know. I wanna make music that people can find relatable. Well, even if it doesn't have to be for everybody. It doesn't have to be a top hit. My music is very relatable. I want to say to NF, where it has like a feeling to it, and like a lot of it has like an emotion to it. So far, most of it's been like an anger, not like yelling. It's not
screamo kind.
It's not like
not Scar-Lord,
not Scar-Lord or like Angry X, like, but next thing you know, who knows? And I might be hyping myself up, getting my hopes up, but there could be that one song that
all it takes is one.
It could be perceived 5 different ways, and then it just becomes something so much bigger. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, for example, Let You Down by NF became a huge radio hit. Mm-hmm. It went platinum 3 times, I believe.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, triple platinum. And he, it's a top radio song. A lot of people listen to it, and it sounds, if you just listen to it raw, the song sounds like someone is talking to like a loved one, and they're like, I let you down, I wasn't here for you, and that's why you left me, and that's why we're not together anymore. Some people can see it as family, some people can see it as relationship, like say you have a girlfriend and
there's
you
so
weren't.
Many interpretations. His
interpretation was he's talking to himself because of his past with his whole family.
That in, like, an interview or something?
Yeah, it was explained in like a synopsis thing of the song.
That's actually surprising because a lot of artists don't really want the message to be out there what they intended it to be, so anyone can have whatever perception they want.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of people hide it, but the reason why it was because there was no one else listed as a singer on a track for the chorus. Okay. And the chorus is this higher pitched voice. And so in an interview, I think it was in an interview, they asked him who it was, and he said that was me.
Mm-hmm. So he just changed his own voice.
He wanted it to make it sound like it was him when he was, a little kid, like 9-10 years old. Huh. So it's him telling himself that he let himself down. Wow. And that's why the whole song is about how he wishes he could better him. He could have done something himself to make it so he wasn't as in such a mental state of like pain. He always thinks of himself as so angry and depressed, and you know, but even though he's talking about himself, he has all these people that come and listen to this, and it's relatable because they can perceive it in different ways. Yeah. And that's like the kind of music that I would like to make, something with a message, with a feeling that people can relate to, but also perceive in whatever way.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I'm very glad. If you had one message that you could kind of leave us with, what do you think that it would be?
I'd say there are a whole bunch of paths that you are given based on your opportunities. Many. It's about using what you're given, whether it's a connection, someone comes up to you and says, I have this for you. Mm-hmm. And you could take it, you could say no or yes. And I say always take your opportunities, because there will be a time where you're going to feel limited. You're going to feel like there aren't many things that you can do. And so any opportunity that's given to you or presented to you, you should take it, because you don't know where it's going to lead you. You could think of that as a negative thing. Oh, this could be bad for me. But in the end, there's a lot of times where you will learn from it if it's bad for you. And if it's good for you, it improves you in a good, some sort of way. Either way, taking the opportunity, it'll improve you. And so with me, it was the programming and music. Those are two separate paths, I want to say completely separate paths. And so far, anytime that I'm given something in the music, I guess you could say community, I want to go with it. If someone asks me, hey, do you want to do something with me, or can you take a listen to this, and like we talk about it, and I get recognition and he gets recognition from it. But anyway, like taking the opportunities that are given to you increases your options in the future, gives you a whole bunch of paths to go down, a whole bunch of branches from if you want to look at it like a tree, you have your trunk of your tree, that's you starting off as like a kid, and then all your branches spread out, and each of those branches have smaller branches that come off. But take all the opportunities you can, and hopefully it'll get you a place in life that you'll feel like you've learned a lot and you've improved a lot yourself.
Nobody wants to live with regret.
Yes.
Well, it was very nice having you on the show, and I'm glad you could make it.
I'm glad I could be here.
Thank you.
Mechanism.